All right, today we're going to deconstruct what might look like a total relic, the old B3 customs form. But here's the thing, don't let its age fool you. We're going to treat this thing not as an old piece of paper, but as the timeless blueprint that explains the logic behind, well, every single commercial import into Canada. Now, I know the first question on your mind. The B3 was officially replaced by the electronic CARM system in 2024, so why are we even talking about it? And that's a fair question. The answer, though, is the key to mastering not just the old system, but pretty much any new one they throw at us. It's because the B3 isn't really just a form, it's a system of logic. When you master its structure, you're learning the core data. The Canada Border Services Agency, the CBSA, will always need, no matter what technology they're using. You know, it's kind of like learning the rules of grammar before you try to write an essay. The tools might change, but the principles don't. So here's how we're going to follow that story. First up is the premise. Then we'll meet the key players in the header. After that, we trace the goods journey in the subheader. We'll itemize everything in the body, and finally, we'll settle the bill in the trailer. Let's do it. Okay, Section 1, the premise. The core idea here is really simple. Every single customs entry, at its heart, tells a story. And that story is told in 4 main acts. It starts with the header, which basically sets the stage. Then you have the subheader, detailing the journey. The body gets into the nitty-gritty of the goods, and the trailer wraps it all up. Each act builds on the last to create a complete picture for the CBSA. Let's dive right into Act 1, the header. This is where we identify all the key players in this whole transaction. Field 1 defines the importer. And you know, this distinction is absolutely critical. The importer isn't just whoever happens to receive the package. It's the company that actually bought the goods and is legally on the hook for all the duties and taxes. Big difference. And that 14-digit transaction number in Field 2? The easiest way to think about it is like your shipment's unique passport. It's issued by the CBSA, no two are ever the same, and it's the one single identifier used to track that specific entry through the entire customs process. On to our second act, the subheader. So if the header was the who, this is the where. We're tracing the goods journey before they even got to Canada. This whole section tells the shipment's origin story. Who was the vendor? Where were the goods actually made? Which port did they ship from, and when exactly did they leave for Canada? Every single one of these details can have a direct impact on the final cost. And speaking of cost, this is where the money really comes in. Field 14, tariff treatment, is a simple code that tells the CBSA if your goods qualify for lower duty rates under a trade deal, like SUSMA with the US and Mexico or CETA with Europe. Getting this one little code right can be the difference between paying a hefty duty or paying absolutely zero. It's huge. Hey, remember that direct shipment date we just mentioned? This is why it is so incredibly important. That single date locks in the exact currency exchange rate that customs is going to use for all their calculations. A single day's difference could change the exchange rate and, of course, the size of your final bill. All right, now for the most detailed part of our story, the body. This is where we break down every single product inside that shipment, line by line. The real heart of this section is the classification number in Field 27. It's a 10-digit code from the customs tariff that basically acts as a universal language. It tells the CBSA with absolute precision exactly what an item is. Is it a cotton t-shirt or a polyester one? This number makes that distinction perfectly clear. Field 31 uses this really clever 2-part code to declare the value. The first digit tells customs about the relationship. Are the buyer and seller related companies? The second digit explains how the value was determined. Was it based on the price paid, or maybe the value of identical goods? It's all about being totally transparent. Now, calculating the final tax isn't as simple as just using the product's price. To find the value for tax, you actually start with the value for duty. Then you add on any customs duties, and then any other special taxes. The GST is then calculated on that final, higher amount. It's a buildup. And that GST, the one entered in Field 35, is almost always the standard 5%. It's this rate that gets applied to that total value for tax that we just calculated. We've reached the final act, the trailer. This is the end of the story where all those individual calculations from the body are summarized and the final bill is presented. Okay, let's clear up a really common point of confusion. The cargo control number in Field 45 is not the same as the government's transaction number. Think of the CCN as the carrier's number. It's the tracking code from FedEx or UPS or whatever trucking line is physically moving your stuff. And here it is, the final tally. All the individual customs duties from each line are summed up in Field 47.
All the GST amounts are totaled up in field 50. You add those two together and you get the grand total payable in field 51. Simple as that.
That declaration at the very end is so much more than just a signature. It is a legally binding statement. By signing it, the importer or their agent is certifying that this entire story, from the very first field to the last, is true and complete. The legal weight of that signature is just immense.
So, as we wrap this up, just remember this: the technology, that's always going to change. But the fundamental story of an import, the who, what, where, and why, that part never will. By understanding the logic of the B3, you've really learned the timeless language of customs. So now, you're ready to tell your own shipment story.